The afternoon sun poured through the tall glass windows of the university's library, flooding the quiet halls with golden light. Students whispered over open books, the rustle of pages blending with the faint hum of the air conditioning. I had buried myself in a corner, surrounded by piles of notebooks and highlighted articles, determined to catch up on the workload that seemed to grow heavier with every passing day. That was when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting a message from a friend or maybe a reminder I had set for myself. But the name flashing across the screen froze me in place: Professor Alden. Professor Alden wasn't just any lecturer. He was known across the campus as one of the most meticulous, demanding, and, some whispered, mysterious figures at Westbridge University. His lectures in literature and cultural studies always drew a packed hall, not only because of the subject's popularity, but because of the man himself. He was brilliant, eloquent, and often intimidating. To be singled out by him, whether for praise or criticism, was something every student remembered. My heart thudded as I picked up the call. "Hello." My voice cracked slightly. "Good afternoon," came his steady, resonant tone. "This is Professor Alden. Could you come to my office at 6 o'clock today? I have some additional assignments I'd like you to work on." I blinked, my pen slipping from my fingers. "Assignments? For me?" "Yes. You've shown promise in your recent essays, and there are opportunities for deeper study. If you're willing, of course." His words carried weight, but also something else, an invitation that felt almost personal. "Yes, Professor," I managed, trying to sound calm. "I'll be there." The call ended as swiftly as it had begun, leaving me staring at the phone, breathless. Around me, the library continued in its rhythm, but inside me, a storm of questions brewed. Why me? What kind of assignments? Was this a good sign, or a warning? The walk to his office. At exactly 5:50, I found myself walking across the campus courtyard toward the faculty wing. The evening air was cool, laced with the scent of autumn leaves. My footsteps echoed in the quiet halls as I climbed the stairwell, my pulse quickening with every step. Professor Alden's office was at the end of the third-floor corridor, behind a heavy wooden door with a brass nameplate. Light spilled from beneath it, and I could hear the faint scratch of a pen. I knocked. "Come in," his voice called. The room was exactly what I had imagined. Shelves towering with books, their spines worn with age, the faint smell of parchment and ink. On the walls hung framed maps and old portraits. At the center, behind a broad mahogany desk, sat Professor Alden himself. His silver hair caught the light, and his sharp eyes lifted from the paper in front of him. "You're punctual. Good." He gestured to the chair opposite. "Please, sit." I lowered myself into the chair, clutching my notebook nervously. "You mentioned additional assignments." "Yes." He folded his hands, studying me. "I've been observing your progress this semester. Your insights are sharp, but I believe you can be pushed further. What I have in mind isn't part of the usual curriculum. It's a deeper exploration, one that requires patience, independence, and a willingness to go beyond the surface." My curiosity stirred. "What kind of exploration?" He leaned back. "Stories. Hidden ones. You see, literature isn't just words bound in books. It's the echo of lived lives, the fragments of truth scattered in forgotten corners. I want you to gather these echoes." I frowned slightly. "You mean research?" "Not just research." His eyes glinted. "Discovery. The first assignment." That evening, he handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with an address written in elegant script. "Go there," he said. "You'll find an old man named Harris. He once worked in the university archives. Speak to him. Listen. Write his story." I left the office bewildered, clutching the envelope as though it were a secret mission. Why had he chosen me? And why did it feel like more than just an academic task? The next morning, I made my way to the address. It led me to a modest little house on the outskirts of town. Mr. Harris was waiting on the porch, as though he'd known I was coming. His eyes lit up when I introduced myself, and soon, over tea, he began to talk. He spoke of the university's history, of manuscripts long lost, of professors who had guarded their knowledge like treasures. He told me stories of forgotten students, of rebellions and quiet acts of courage that had never made it into official records. I wrote furiously, capturing every detail. By the time I returned to Professor Alden's office days later, I had filled an entire journal. He read through my notes in silence, then nodded approvingly. You listened. You didn't just take facts. You caught the heartbeat of a story. That's rare. His praise sent warmth through me, but it also sparked something deeper, the desire to prove myself again. A growing bond. Weeks passed, and the additional assignments continued. Each one was stranger and more intriguing than the last. I interviewed an elderly librarian who claimed to have guarded secret manuscripts, a retired professor who confessed to having hidden letters from a forgotten poet, even a gardener who told tales of students who met under the old oak tree to exchange forbidden ideas. Every time, I returned to Alden's office with pages of notes, and every time, he would study them with that sharp, almost secretive gaze. Sometimes he questioned me relentlessly, testing whether I truly understood the depth of what I had uncovered. Other times, he would fall silent, lost in thought, as though my words stirred memories of his own. Slowly, our meetings became less formal. He would pour tea, and we would sit surrounded by the towering shelves, talking not only about assignments but about life, dreams, and the strange power of stories to outlive those who told them. You remind me of myself when I was younger, he admitted once. Hungry for knowledge, restless, searching for meaning beyond grades and accolades. His words settled in me like seeds. Perhaps, for the first time, I felt seen. The turning point. One evening, as autumn gave way to winter, Professor Alden handed me not an address, but an old, leather-bound journal. Its pages were yellowed, the ink faded. This, he said softly, was my mentor's. He entrusted it to me before he died. I've never shared it with anyone. But I believe you're ready. I opened the journal carefully. Inside were fragments of stories, half-written poems, sketches of forgotten ruins, cryptic notes about lost civilizations. It felt like holding a fragment of someone's soul. Why me? I whispered. His eyes softened. Because you don't just record stories, you breathe life into them. That's what my mentor saw in me, long ago. And now, I see it in you. The final assignment. Months had passed since that first phone call, and I had changed. The nervous student who had stumbled into his office was gone, replaced by someone braver, more curious, more alive. Then, one evening, he gave me my final assignment. You've listened to others. You've told their stories. But now, he said, handing me a blank notebook, you must tell your own. I stared at the empty pages, overwhelmed. My story. What did I have to say that could matter? But over the weeks that followed, I began to write. I wrote about my childhood, about my struggles, my fears, my hopes. I wrote about how this journey had transformed me, how the professor's assignments had taught me to see life itself as a story worth telling. When I finally placed the filled notebook on his desk, he didn't even open it. He simply smiled. You've completed the circle. You don't need my approval anymore. The story belongs to you. The legacy. That semester ended, but the lessons lingered. Professor Alden's additional assignments had been more than academic tasks. They were a map to self-discovery, a bridge between the past and the present, a reminder that stories are the threads that bind us all. Years later, when I became a writer myself, I often thought back to that evening when my phone rang, and my professor's calm voice had said, "Come to my office for additional assignments." I realized then that those words had changed my life. Because sometimes, the greatest assignments aren't about grades or deadlines. They're about finding the stories that shape us, and learning how to share them with the world.